A huge hello and welcome to everyone joining us for the National Day of Learning, proudly presented by the Carol Kimmelman Athletic and Academic Campus and powered by Zoom. I'm Dan Faber, the Executive Director of the U.S. Tennis Association Foundation, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome everyone to today's event and to share more about the Kimmelman campus and its core initiatives. For those of you not familiar with the project, the Kimmelman campus provides an academic and athletic opportunities for tens of thousands of students and families across the United States, working with school districts to deliver tennis equipment and training, English and math curriculum, college and career readiness resources, and professional development for STEM instructors. These projects are possible thanks to partnerships with the U.S. Tennis Association, U.S. Tennis Association's Foundation, Tiger Woods Charity, the TGR Foundation, and Windward Academy, and thanks to the generous support of the Kimmelman Family Foundation and Martha and Bruce Karsh. Today's National Day of Learning is a special project for the Kimmelman campus, entirely focused on uniting students around the country to boost college and career readiness, spark your intellectual curiosity, find ways to be healthy and active, and honestly, just to have a lot of fun and enjoy learning. It has been a challenging year for everyone, students, families, and educators. We just wanted to create an opportunity for you all to be inspired and engaged today. We would like to offer a special welcome to all of you joining us. We want to thank our school and nonprofit partners for trusting us with your students and working so hard to create opportunities for the youth we are privileged to support. We have so many special events planned for you today, none of which would be possible without generous community support. Today's National Day of Learning is powered by Zoom, and in addition to the partners listed earlier, is supported by the Manitou Fund, the Jack and Gloria Kramer Family Foundation, and Toyota. So we, of course, want to give all of them a huge thank you for being an integral part of today. To get us started, we have a Let's Inspire career panel featuring 4 professionals from the 2020 NBA champion LA Lakers team. We put a link in the chat to a flyer with the bios and headshots for everyone joining us in the sessions today. We encourage you to read more about them in case there are questions you want to ask in the chat. I'd now like to welcome Pat Harvey-Lombard, who will be moderating the discussions with the executives from the LA Lakers. Pat is a CBS anchor and guest co-host on CBS, the talk show daytime show. She has won 25 Emmy Awards and 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards. She is also recently inducted into the National Association of Black Journalists Hall of Fame. We couldn't be more honored to have Ms. Harvey-Lombard, known as Pat, joining us today to facilitate a vibrant conversation with the Lakers. Please welcome Pat and my fellow Michigander. Pat?
Hi there, Dan. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm hoping, can you see me on the video screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Not exactly seeing that on my end, but here we are, folks. This is technology, and we are doing our Zoom broadcast today. But I am thrilled to be here with all of you, and of course, all of the students and educators with the Lakers executives who have graciously agreed to share their time with us this morning. And as I welcome the panelists, I'd like to first tell you a little more about them. And remember to click the link in the chat to read their full bios. First, we have Kiesha Nix. Kiesha is the executive director of the Lakers Youth Foundation. Next is Elaine Shen. She's the senior director of corporate development and finance. Then we have AJ Harris. He is vice president of accounting and finance. Next, we have Allison Howard, vice president of corporate partnerships. I'd like to welcome to all of you and ask you to please turn on your cameras and microphones to join me as well. We have a lot of questions to ask you from some students who submitted them in advance. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to jump right in. And I would like to start with Kiesha. Kiesha, you have an incredible job as the executive director of the Lakers Youth Foundation. So can you tell us a little about a recent project that the foundation was involved in and why it matters so much to the foundation?
Good morning, Pat, and good morning to all the students out there. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. A recent project that we participated in during COVID, we realized that there was a lack of technology in our youth in the minority communities here in Los Angeles. Even though we know the schools were really trying to get the technology into the students' hands, we realized that we needed to step up and really try and do a better job because students were at home. Some of them were sharing, technology with, multiple siblings, or they didn't have Wi-Fi. So the Lakers decided we were going to help close the digital divide here in Los Angeles. And we wanted to make sure that our students, our nonprofit organizations didn't fall too far behind. And so we literally went out, we partnered with several great community partners, and we did some of our grassroots organizations because we wanted to make sure that they weren't just dropping off laptops and iPads. They were actually talking to the families and finding out what the need was. And so that was a major project, and it's still ongoing because the needs still exist. So we're just excited that we were able to do that, just a small part from the Lakers. And again, the work continues.
That's fantastic, Kiesha. I know I can vouch for what you do for the community so very, very much. We want to talk to Elaine next. Now, this is very interesting because you started your career as an actuary in an insurance company, and that's a skill set that's highly mathematical. You do a lot of high risk financially. You analyze high risk financial problems. You then transition as the senior director of corporate development and finance for a major NBA team. So what skills or experiences enabled you to make such a switch?
Yeah, and it seems like it's from two different, areas that completely, the glamorous world of insurance versus the glamorous world of sports. But for those who, are listening and don't know what an actuary is, I didn't know in middle school or high school what that was. It is, like you said, Pat, someone who calculates insurance risk and determines how much insurance should cost in order to cover the expected losses. So as a consulting actuary, I work with schools and cities and counties and really help them determine, once or twice a year, how much they should set aside for their program. So it was about diving into the numbers, into the data, and really being able to explain those results to someone who wasn't in, day out, and in a way they could understand to make a good decision. So as Senior Director of Corporate Development, I'm still translating numbers and quantitative concepts into takeaways that decision makers, can use, such as our Lakers CFO or our Lakers CEO, and allow them to have the information they need. So rather than be about insurance, it's about the business of basketball. And I think going to business school helped me make that transition, but really it's about tapping into the same skill sets that, I had in that previous job. So my love of numbers, layering on top of that, developing, knowing my audience, what are they going to be interested in, and articulating those concepts. So it's about connecting dots and bringing, what you already know to the table. So I think for students here, it's, if they're learning a new musical instrument, starting a different sport, tapping into a different subject at school, or looking into applying what they do in high school to what they do in college, it's the same thing, going back to your roots and how have you been successful so far and taking it to that next level.
Well, let me ask you something. Does Coach Vogel come to you, Elaine, for making plays for the team?
That would not be my area of expertise. Has got that down himself. He's so great, and I've learned different from him on the court. So yeah.
I was going to say, you seem so strategic in what you're able to do. So
I'm
that might happen
with the experts, but thank you.
All right, thanks, Elaine. Now, AJ, you spend a lot of time mentoring upcoming professionals. So how do you recommend students find a passionate mentor like yourself? That's very important.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Pat. And thank you everyone for having me. Happy Friday here. Throughout my journey, I recognized I was very fortunate to have tremendous mentors all the way back to middle school, who really saw promise in me and assisted me in guiding me through sort of my educational as well as professional paths. at PwC, the public accounting firm where I started my career. And even now at the Lakers, I entered into situations where my supervisors were really invested in me. I relied heavily on them to connect me to formal and informal mentors inside and outside of the environments I was in. So first, I would say it's important to stay vocal, stay persistent, and be respectful. You likely have identified this person you want to be your mentor as they've been successful in their field. And they're not avoiding you if they're not responding, but likely just busy with a number of competing priorities. So my recommendation is just cast a wide net and be intentional when asking for help, for guidance, for any sort of advice. I've learned many people love to share their journey. I love to share my journey with people. So just make sure you capitalize on that opportunity.
So really don't be afraid to ask.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, AJ, we're going to get back to you as well. I want to move on now to Allison. Now, Allison, part of your job description as Vice President of Corporate Partnerships is that you're responsible for protecting the Lakers brand. So can you explain what that means and give us an example of a success that you've had?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us. It's my pleasure to be here. So I would actually say that as any employee of the Lakers, really all of us kind of feel like we walk around with a set of armor on where we feel like we have to protect the brand. We have an extremely humble owner in the family, and especially Jeannie Buss. And so I think all of us probably walk around wanting to make sure that we represent the brand the absolute best way. And in a sports team, there's two departments that generate money. There's season tickets, and then there's corporate partnerships. And I'm in charge of corporate partnerships. So our job is to go out to companies like Delta, American Express, MGM, and solidify sponsorships. And what that means is they have the use of our brand. We give them certain rights. Maybe it's tickets, maybe it's player appearances, TV visible signage, and in exchange, hopefully they pay us a good amount of money. And so as you can imagine, when you have a brand like the Lakers, we get a lot of different calls from a lot of different companies, and some of which might be new and emerging categories. Right now, NFT, cryptocurrency are very, very big. There's a lot of teams that are kind of capitalizing on this. The Lakers brand, where we really want to make sure, does that make sense for us, right? We never would want our fans to kind of cock their head to the side and say, why did they do that deal? That doesn't really seem like, it makes sense. So I would say we have 30 partners, and I would say they're all success stories, really. They continue to renew with us. They continue to tell us we help deliver whatever their marketing objective is. And really at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to make sure that we've delivered win-win opportunities for those partners.
Is there a certain criteria you look for, though, Allison? Because when you protect your brand at the same time, you're going to make sure you're going to pick somebody that you feel, would do the same, right?
Well, we have to do a tremendous amount of research. So let's say we get an inbound call from XYZ company, and they say, we have money we want to spend with you. We want to be your partner in this category, in the water category, in the coffee category, and airline category. We say, great, let's have a conversation. Let's make sure that we're having realistic conversations about A, the amount of money you have, B, how financially secure are you? And then C, a big thing in corporate partnerships for us is exclusivity. So a lot of new companies will come to us and say, I want to take the entire airline industry or category or credit card company, right? Well, we may already be into a contract where that category is locked up. So it's on us to make sure we understand our contracts. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time with legal, and then exploring the company themselves, right? What's their reputation in the marketplace? What do they stand for? What's their reputation with their employees, right? Kind of like, well, we make a ton of money, but we don't really care about who works for us, and we don't care about their livelihood. We really go down pretty deep to make sure that if we're going to align our two brands, and we're going to go out and tell our fans, hey, go and support this company, go and maybe purchase their products or purchase their services. we have already said they're good enough for you to explore.
So a lot of due diligence there.
It's a lot of due diligence.
Okay. All right, Allison. Now, Kiesha, back to you. You devote a generous amount of your time to facilitating courageous conversations, both within the Lakers organization and the broader community. So help us understand what they are and what you've taken away from these conversations.
Okay, Pat, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? I had to switch to my headphones because there's some landscaping going on outside. This is what we deal with.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. This is what we deal with, people, in the world of Zoom.
That's right.
So yes, in the wake of all the social injustice, after the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all the names that, would take us an hour to name, the Lakers decided that we needed to do more. We needed to really educate ourselves on what was going on, why these things were happening. And so we decided to expand a relationship we started several years ago with a great organization called Game Changer. And we have a program at the Lakers called Building Bridges Through Basketball. And so what we would do before COVID is bring community organizations and youth, older youth, like 18 to 24. We bring them together before games and we would have conversations with law enforcement. We would create a safe space so they could ask whatever questions they wanted. Well, fast forward, social injustice, COVID 2020, the year that we had, and we had to pivot a little bit. And so we decided to continue those conversations with our external community, but then we wanted to do something internally for the Lakers staff as well. So we decided to put a twist on the courageous conversation. We wanted a book club, but we knew no one would read the book. So we made it a movie club or a documentary club. And we started watching things that were pretty controversial, like When They See Us, or 13th, or Amend. And we literally would depict episode by episode and create a space from everyone, including our owner, Jeannie Buss, felt comfortable coming together and asking questions and sharing real life experiences. I mean, we shed a lot of tears and we learned a lot from one another. And we're still going through the process. We have homework this weekend. Everyone on the call watched Amend episode 3. We're going to be depicting that on Tuesday. And so this is a way that we learn to educate ourselves and also to get ourselves in front of law enforcement, local law enforcement here, who wanted to hear what we had to say, but to have a dialogue that was healthy. We could ask questions, they could be transparent, but we could really listen to one another. And so the courageous conversation piece has really just taken off. We've had other NBA teams, ask, could they sit in? Could we share information with them? Because it's been a really healthy process for us.
So this is something that you do internally that actually, because you do a lot in terms of the Lakers organization itself, from what we see and I'm speaking as a viewer now, there is so much, and to be commended, because it looks like such a huge program that not only LeBron and the other players have participated in, but that has to start from within. That's something that I'm learning for the first time today. And because of what you do, you also have conversations with the other teams and their staff members?
Yes, the NBA, NBA is a big happy family. I like to look at it as the competition happens on the court, but the work that most of us do can really be a collaboration. And so it's been exciting. That's one thing that we learned and could take away from COVID, that we've come together, all 30 teams, and we've done some great work. Like the NBA Foundation was created, in the wake of this. And we're talking a total of, $30 million, pledge, $300 million pledge to help minority communities and to open up opportunities. So a lot of great things have happened in collaboration, but yes, we're kind of an open book, what we're doing internally as well as externally. And so if another team wants to sit in or ask questions or needs introductions, and so I've had that conversation with a few teams. So I'm excited about that. It's definitely a win-win for us.
And this is obviously something ongoing, right, Kiesha? Sounds like it.
Yes, it's ongoing. I thought we were going to do a couple, and that led to all last year. And then I had to re-up and sign up again for this year. So we're in the midst of Amend. It's a 6-part series on Netflix, narrated by Will Smith. And when I tell you, Pat, we have learned so much more by watching that than we ever learned in our history class. Sorry to anyone out there, history teachers, but maybe you should watch Amend and bring that back to the students, because you could really get a lot from that.
Well, I think we're all going to do that. All right. Okay, thank you, Kiesha. Now, Elaine, you've demonstrated direction and drive throughout your studies and your career. I want to ask you how you got started and help us understand your journey and any mentors who inspired or supported you along the way.
Yeah, I would say that my parents kind of get all the credit for drilling into me from the start, importance of studying, getting good grades, but it wasn't just about going through the motions and, checking the list. It was really taking the time to understand what you were learning. And so if even after you finished that homework assignment, you didn't really fully understand why it was going, understanding the why. And I think that's kind of carried with me. But as I've been working after graduating from school, I don't know that I've identified really with having a lot of formal mentorship. I don't have an AJ that I kind of go into and check in as problems come up and kind of problem solve with someone consistently. But I feel like I've had a lot of mentors along the way in a more informal fashion, more so through asking for feedback and just general observations. So I guess as an example, as I'm working on a new project or with someone new that I haven't worked with before, I'll actively go and ask and say, how are we doing? How am I doing? Is there anything that you have noticed that I should be doing differently? Help me kind of learn and understand if there's a better path, and both positive and some constructive feedback, and listening to what they're saying and then taking part. So I think sometimes it's easy to say, okay, I heard that, but no, that's not really happening, but taking it in and saying, okay, is there anything that I can change and grow from that? So I'm a big believer in progress, a lifetime of progress and growth. And as it relates to mentorship through observation, I've noticed there's so many styles of leadership and not everyone's the same. So with any given person, there's aspects that I admire that I say, okay, I really love that, but that would never be me, authentically. I can't encapsulate that. I can't pretend to be that. And then there's aspects that I admire and I say, okay, maybe I can, incorporate that into what I do, how I lead, how I work. And so for an example of that, I think, Allison Howard, I don't know if the rest of you could tell from this panel, but she and I are probably on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to, our personalities in all the best ways possible. She is loud. You can hear her from across the room. I am quiet and I'm kind of in the background. And she has this energy that she just carries with her as she enters the room and greets everybody, and she can talk to anybody. And I'm not good at small talk. I can't think of the topics of what to bring up. But, for me in observing how she interacts with everyone else, I won't be that, person with the voice in a room. I don't think that will ever be me, but I've taken from her, a cue to actively greet people, check in on
individuals.
And that's really strengthened my relationships at work. So I think that or not, she's like an informal mentor.
Wow, boy, did we witness a moment here, ladies and gentlemen. That has to be the highest compliment, really, Allison. I was going to go to AJ, but I'm going to go to you next, Allison. But I do want to ask you, Elaine, I don't think we covered how you went to the Lakers. Did you seek them out or did they seek you out?
Yeah, so it was definitely luck and just kind of being in the right moment. I was in business school in my first quarter and I was in a finance class and I just happened to, have studied and gotten a really good grade on my finance midterm. And the Lakers at the time were looking for someone to kind of help them with their financial modeling and understanding this concept of revenue sharing. And they reached out to my professor and said, do you have students you would recommend to interview and go through the process and find an intern to help us out? So that's kind of how I got matched with the Lakers, going through that process.
All right, that's terrific. So to all our business majors out there, hope you've been paying attention to that. So Allison, I know you want to comment on the compliment that you just received from Elaine. I think that's fantastic when you have a coworker or colleague to really give you kudos like that and say that you're sort of their mentor. So I'm going to have you comment back to Elaine, and I want to ask you another question about your degree and how you made the transition.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's vice versa. I mean, Elaine has also taught me so much, and we've had this conversation together, right? Like, I am a very loud person. I can go into a room. I mean, you all can't see me. I mean, I see Kiesha and laughing, right? None of you can see me, but I'm 5'3" on a good day. I'm a small statured female, right? But I go into a room, I don't need to know anybody, and I'm comfortable. That's okay. That's not my challenge, right? But what struck me, and this was several years ago, is, and Elaine is being very humble. She is a huge resource to the entire organization. And I remember we were in this room and there was 8, 9, 10 of us there. And I'm sitting across from her and I wanted to hand her a microphone because I'm like, Elaine, what are you saying? I can't hear. But what she said, when she talks, nobody speaks because they want to listen to absolutely every single word that she is sharing because it's so profound, right? It's not me, right? I am 180 degrees away from that. But what I did learn from Elaine is maybe I don't need to always be the one to voice my opinion first. Maybe it's best for the whole group collectively is to let other people speak, and even the soft-spoken ones, and encourage the people that might not be the first ones to raise their hand to share their opinion because it's very valuable.
Okay.
It's a big growth part for me because, right, I'm like kind of this bull in a china shop, like, okay, I have all these ideas, I always have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you know what, listening is even more valuable than sharing your opinion.
So, okay, what I've derived from this then, that Elaine is the quiet storm, and you, Allison, you're all of 5'3", but a powerhouse. And at the same time, though, your degree is in civil engineering. Yeah. Civil engineering. So how did you make a transition from that to brand management?
Oh, you can't draw the parallel line straight from the two? So it's a kind of a long, not that interesting story, but I was a good student, and I decided to go into engineering. I picked a small school, University of Dayton, where my graduating class was only 21 people, 11 women, 10 men.
Wow.
And I worked the carpet out from my dorm room to the professors, because I can tell you, I probably had the worst grades of those 21, but I persevered because I had 2 people tell me there's no way you're going to graduate with your civil engineering degree. And that was enough for me to dig my heels in and say, oh yes, I'm going to, right?
Yes.
And I actually really enjoyed it, but I made the transition because I met somebody. I ended up going to work for a small sports marketing firm called Premier Partnerships. I was employee number 5. I had to start at the bottom. And the owner, Randy Bernstein at the time, said, I will teach you everything you need to know, but you have to start at the bottom. And the reason he hired me was he believed that I would work very hard. And he was right. And that's all of us kind of joke, right? Like, we're not doctors, but we kind of keep doctors' hours. I mean, sports is weekends, it's holidays, it's late nights, it's early mornings. And a lot of people say they can do that and make that commitment. The reality is that it certainly can take its toll, right? And you have to be so dedicated and really understand what that effort that goes into it, right? But the great news is that anybody can do this. If you are committed, right? You don't have to get your doctorate. You don't have to you don't have to go to law school. You have to work hard, and you have to have a positive attitude. And have this can do. I mean, even now as a VP, I would go and pick up bagels and coffee, for a meeting that I had at 8 a.m. Like no task is below me.
Got it.
Absolutely nothing. Right. And that, I mean, even last night, so I have 2 boys and we helpers that come and help us from the university that's here in our town. And I got a call from one that he's trying to get an internship, and he watched my boys. I mean, he was kind of a glorified babysitter, right? He told me and as a reference, right? And I said, he shows up on time. He always has a positive attitude, and he keeps my boys entertained, and he gets their homework done. He stays on task. These are little things that as a 21-year-old, of just babysitting that can transfer him to get that internship. She told me at the end of the call, she's going to hire him.
Key. Those are key. Those are
Yes.
values, right? Students who are
Anybody
listening,
can do it.
that can take you
Anybody
far.
can do it. That's the greatest, that is the greatest news, I think, to share with the youth is anybody can be here.
Love it. We need to hear that more and more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So AJ, because he's been so patient, sitting, smiling, and listening to his colleagues. You attended a liberal arts college. I'm going to say a prestigious liberal arts college because I know Claremont McKenna. You ended up as vice president of accounting and finance at the Lakers. So tell us about your pathway and what you recommend about a liberal arts education.
Sure. And echoing Allison's sentiments there, anyone can do it. I actually started my college career as a literature major, wanted to pursue a career in journalism. That's what I always thought I wanted to be. I was a great writer, and I wanted to continue flexing those muscles.
Wow.
I took my first accounting class, I think my second semester, my sophomore year, and it really just came natural to me. And I actually liked it, right? And you don't hear that a lot around accounting. So I decided to pick it up and actually dual major in economics accounting. Again, I pursued that career. I signed a full-time offer at PwC, which is one of the big 4 large public accounting firms after school. Went into the entertainment technology sector. And so that's the specific vertical that covers your entertainment, media, communications, and technology companies. So my client portfolio consisted of your Sony's, your Disney's, your CBS and film finance houses, and of course the Lakers, which is how I ended up working for the organization. And I personally thought it was the coolest thing, walking by players and having all these celebrity sightings, right? Every now and then. It was an amazing experience being on the other side. But to actually answer the question, what I appreciated most about my time at a liberal arts school and getting that type of education was my exposure to different fields of study through the various general education requirements that we had to complete. So had I not had to actually take that accounting class, I never would have discovered this field and pursued a career in accounting or finance. And it was all because of that one introductory class. And as Allison mentioned, right, anyone can do it. I mean, it just takes some grind, some elbow grease, and just the right direction. And I think everyone has the potential to pursue their passion, whether that be in sports or another field.
I'm glad you said that. And I'm saying that because when you speak with young people sometimes, they will say, well, I don't know what to study in college. I don't know what to, and my answer would be, well, study liberal arts until you find out a specific area that you're interested in. But that just covers everything. And here you are. You decided to take an accounting class, and then you just took off from there. You decided that's what you wanted to do.
Hit the ground running after that.
Okay, that's great. All right, so I hope everyone out there listening remembers that. So now this next question I'm going to throw out to everybody. You're all incredible role models. What advice would you give to teenagers to position themselves for success in the future? I mean, we've learned a lot listening to all of you, but just is there a particular set of not necessarily rules, but ideals that you would say to young people who want to go into anything out there, but if they want to be successful at something, what would you tell them to do? And AJ, since you're on the screen, I'm going to let you answer that.
Sure. I would also say I was probably never top of my class or best at any particular one thing. I really sort of expounded those liberal arts ideals there, which really allowed me to succeed in hunger and passion for things that essentially I was participating in. So really across the board. So whether it was my education or sports, I enjoyed what I was doing. And I would say that you should pursue those paths because it could lead to some pretty cool experiences that I think you'll cherish your entire life, and hopefully find a few paychecks every now and then. But it's important to find that sort of intersection between your passions and work.
Love that. Love that, AJ. Okay, Elaine?
I was going to punt it to Allison and see what she had to say first, but maybe I'll go very quickly. I think for me, it's spending the time to get to know your strengths and your weaknesses. I think everyone has some of each, not, someone who you might think is strong in everything and just amazing. I think they also have areas that they, can be working on. And I think it's honing some of the skills that address those weaknesses, but also spend time leaning into your strengths. I think that can be something that gets forgotten sometimes, and that's you need to develop those as well and flex those, as AJ has mentioned before. So I think just the awareness of both goes such a long way and can guide you in how you approach situations and who and when you ask for help from others, and just allow you to continue to develop as a person. So I would say, take some time to identify those for yourself, and then ask others, what do you see as my strengths and weaknesses, and use that feedback.
See, I can see what Allison means about you, Elaine. You have a quiet voice, but we all stop and listen to what you have to say, because you're brilliant. So,
You're very kind to say that.
You are. You're brilliant, but also very humble. And those are obviously very important qualities as well. Not everybody possesses those qualities. So I'm very happy that you're on this panel today, and that I'm talking to you and listening to you. More importantly, I'm listening to you. Okay, Allison, what advice would you have for young people?
I think the big thing, especially for this, is be careful of the company you keep.
Ooh,
So there's a lot of opportunity to get in trouble, and you have to really, and or not, right? I think that, I remember back in middle school, high school days, seeing certain kids who you knew were probably going to go down one path, and other kids that you knew were going to go down another. And I always played sports, I was a good student, with my two boys, right? I mean, and they're even only in the third and the fifth grade. And even, with some of the fifth graders and some of this stuff, I'm like, this is not a kid I really want you spending that much time with, right? And you guys, these students, you're old enough to have that instinct. And that intuition is going to pay you dividends as you get older, because there's opportunities, just like, in corporate partnerships, right? I could take a deal from a company that is going to give us a lot of money, right? But they're not going to be a great fit for us. So on one hand, it's great because we get some money, right? But on the other hand, the partner isn't maybe going to be great. They're going to be overly demanding. The brand isn't going to be a good fit, right? Like, you really have to make sure, what I like to say is, keep your moral compass pointed north. Please stick true to what your values are. And these students, I know, are smart enough now to recognize if they should be doing something or if they shouldn't. But it's making the decisions now at an early stage about who you want to surround yourself with, right? And not end up being guilty by association if something goes south.
Very good advice. And boy, does that tee up this next lady, Kiesha Nix, who has raised an outstanding young man, and her involvement with so many different organizations, community organizations. I'm going to let you answer that question, Kiesha. Advice. And while we're talking about character, what characteristics do you look for in interns or people that you'd like to bring into the Lakers Foundation?
So my advice to young people is really simple, and I think Elaine touched on it. Ask for help. Really simple. Just ask for help if you need it. Some of the smartest people ask for help. Some of the most successful people ask for help. All my colleagues on this call, when we're in the office, we're in each other's offices all day, asking each other for help or getting opinions or getting advice. It doesn't mean that I don't know how to do my job, but it just means that I'm smart enough to know that there's some others around me that can actually help. And so I think that, sometimes, especially young people, you think if you raise your hand, you ask for help, it makes you look weak. Just the opposite. It really is a strong characteristic. And so I want somebody who's not going to be afraid to ask. If I give you instructions and you don't understand, please ask me. It's going to save both of us a lot later on. And then another thing that I would say, Pat, is to not limit yourself. The sky really is the limit. I'm sitting here today, a Black woman from South Central Los Angeles, a single mom, and I also sit in the executive offices of the Los Angeles Lakers. And that's a huge accomplishment. And it just lets you know that you can really do anything. You can be anything. I recently heard our owner, Jeannie Buss, say she was excited to be the first female owner to win a championship, but she certainly didn't want to be the last or the only. It's not okay to be the only. It's okay to be the first, but you don't want to be the only. You want to bring others up too. You want to see others win. And so I think to our youth out there, there is no limit to what you can do. You can sit in all of our seats. I think Allison and AJ both said it. You can be us. This is something that you can do. And you don't have to have a law degree and you don't have to have a PhD. You can go to school, you can work really, really hard. And that's what I really aspire to groom the youth out there to one day take my job. Here, take it. I want to retire at some point, but I want to leave it in some capable hands. I want to know someone that's going to have the passion and the drive and who's going to stay up nights and who's going to work weekends and who's going to understand that their responsibility is protecting the brand and providing for the community.
Kiesha, pardon me, I also talking with a lot of young people. They find themselves sometimes, I think, getting to a situation where, I'm not going to make it. They might fall down in a certain subject or maybe in more than one area. What can you tell young people that, because we all go through that, right? But isn't it, you have to keep going. You have to find a way to focus, not just only in the classroom, but as you said, reach out for help, talk to somebody.
Yes. We talked about this on a call yesterday about just mental health. You have to take care of yourself. And a lot of us lose focus, and that's okay. You're not perfect, and we don't expect you to know everything, but you can be an expert in some fields. I was an English major in college and ended up in finance for 21 years. I was at Merrill Lynch and Bank of America. It makes absolutely no sense. There's no connecting of dots. I hated math, I hated business, I hated finance, but I ended up in a career there. But when I was in college, I majored in English because I was great in English. I was a great writer. I love to read. And I decided I better major in something that I can excel in. And then I'll take those other things that I just have to push myself to get through. But I'm going to come out okay because I'm going to do so well in the areas that I love. And then the other ones, I'm just going to try to make it. And that's what I did. And so to all the young people out there, there are going to be some of you that are great in science, great in math, and maybe history is not your thing, or maybe English is not. Do what you need to do, ask for the help to get through, and then persevere and really thrive in the subjects that are your most favorite.
And I think that goes back to what AJ said. I mean, he said, I was a good writer and I thought I was going to go into journalism, and I'm at the Lakers and I'm working in accounting.
Right. You never know.
All right. So you don't have to actually know it right away either. Just try to do something that you're really good at, and then you can go from there. You can transition to almost anything. And I think we have to remember to tell them also that this thing about failure, that's just for you to try again at something else. It doesn't mean that you're a failure at life or anything else that you do. You keep going. That's a lesson as well.
It took me 45 years. It took me 45 years to become a Laker girl. And look at me now. I don't wear the same uniform as them, but I finally made it.
You know what? That is the best. And I think I might have to end it on that note because we do have another panel, but that is so memorable, Kiesha. So for all you listening out there, 45 years, and there she is. This has just been amazing. I want to thank all of our panelists as we transition from this initial session to the next. You were listening to Ms. Kiesha Nix, Ms. Elaine Shen, AJ Harris, and Allison Howard. Thank you so much. And we also have a super fun and exciting announcement made possible by the Laker being inducted into the Hall of Fame tomorrow, the one and only Kobe Bryant. Kobe is such an inspiration to youth everywhere, and he played a special role in the success of two students who attend the KIPP High School in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, this high school uses the Windward Academy platform to support students in classwork and to prepare for the ACT. This access is provided through the Kimmelman campus's National Academic Support Program. And as you see on the screen, the KIPP Memphis High School channels its Mamba mentality and decorated its library with Kobe Bryant photos and quotes to inspire the juniors taking their ACT test this spring. I couldn't be more excited to announce that two students at KIPP Memphis, the one who scored the highest in the school and the one who grew the most, are being awarded with autographed Kobe Bryant books to celebrate their incredible academic success. A huge congratulations to DeBrandon Robinson and Jordan Austin. And how special to announce this gift with so many from the Lakers organization present with us. Now, the next session, Let's Think, is a career panel featuring dynamic female leaders in STEM and the president and CEO of ECOS and a senior scientist from the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. It is sure to engage all of you to learn more about career pathways, tips for teenagers, and future opportunities. And if you haven't yet signed up for that session, we are posting the registration link in the chat for you to make sure you end up in the right place. So I want to thank you again for joining us. Enjoy your short break to recharge, and we will see you again in Let's Think in about 10 minutes.